Welcome to the Inner Magic School podcast, the podcast for spiritual women with vision, experts in their industry, ready to remove the unseen roadblocks, step into their true power, and fast track their business success. Despite what you've heard, hustling harder is not the answer. Success happens naturally when you become fully aligned. And that starts on the inside. So get your notebooks ready and let's go to Inner Magic School. Welcome back to the Inner Magic School podcast. I'm so excited because we have another incredible guest here today, and I am going to ask her to introduce herself. I always love, Michele, you'll appreciate this, I always love to have my guests, I put you on the spot and just like give you the mic and just roll with it.
Excellent. Exactly, right? Put on the spot. So hi, everybody. My name is Michele Thomas. I'm a medical intuitive energy healer and psychic medium with Radiant Living. And pretty much, you know what? I help women who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. I help them just really sort of connect with what's going on with their bodies from an energetic perspective. So we carry a lot of baggage around in all of our energy centers, our chakras. And I help women really clear all the baggage that we carry around with us so that we can really feel a lot better physically, because the things that we carry around with us end up manifesting physically in our bodies. And so that's really what I do, is help women clear all the baggage out so they can be their most vibrant and healthy selves.
I love that so much. So here's the thing is I have never had anyone on the podcast who does exactly what it is that you do. And so first of all, I think it's a perfect addition because everything that I'm talking about is that inner magic. And the idea for me is that whatever is happening on the inside, it's exactly what you just said, also manifests in our 3D reality. Yes. And so there's this correlation that I help walk people through mentally, but I don't talk about like the physical side of healing so much. And yet this is one of the most important things that I find that people struggle with. So I just wanted to start with a question just for our listeners who may not understand exactly what that means. What is energy healing? And then you also said the word chakras. Will you just give us just like the briefest little, I know that that's such a rabbit hole, right? But like you could just give our listeners just like a brief little intro.
Sure. So I'm going to kind of encapsulate it a few different ways, to be honest. So I'm a medical intuitive, which means that I tune into your body to figure out what's going on from a physical standpoint, as well as how it's the mental, emotional, like old beliefs, your childhood, all these things that you grew up with, and how that is affecting you from a physical standpoint. So energy healing, I actually, so what I do is I channel spirit. So during my medical intuition and energy healing sessions is basically I'm a conduit. I'm just the translator. I'm telling you what's going on. So Archangel Raphael and Michael are the ones that are actually doing all the healing. I'm just translating what's happening. But from an energetic perspective, energy healing is about release, right? It's about letting go of just crap. So we carry around things like beliefs that we have from childhood, trauma, not just physical trauma, but mental and emotional trauma as well, from a wide variety of sources in our lives. And so from an energetic perspective, all of that just sort of leaves little cords or little just stagnant energy that sits in our body and just rots, right? And when it sits and festers long enough, it ends up manifesting physically. And so by healing these old wounds, recreating new beliefs, right? To tell yourself a new story instead of, and I know that, your podcast is all about magic, right?
We always talk about that.
And our brains are literally the most powerful tool we have in our healing toolbox, right?
Mm.
It really is the
Yep.
power of positivity, the positive of belief, and letting just the baggage of our past. Because we all are here for a human experience, but that doesn't mean we all have to like carry it around with us in a backpack as we hike up the freaking mountain. And so, from an energetic perspective, we let go of all of the rocks that we're carrying around with us that allows new energy, new vibrations to sort of flow into our bodies, and it allows healing from a physical standpoint as well. You mentioned the chakras, which is interesting because I always start all of my sessions with the chakras because
Mm.
in the course of all of my sort of the people that I've worked on, 80% of the stuff that we carry around, like the illness that we have, stems from chakras that are not in balance. And
Mm.
so it can be, we're, so for the example, a lot of women, especially in our throats, we are blocked in our throats because we're afraid to speak our minds. We're told you're a girl, you shouldn't have an opinion, you're not allowed to speak your mind. You're supposed to be seen and not heard. It's that kind of thing that lives in our throat chakra, and it can stem from marriages, it can stem from adults, parents, teachers, whoever has told you all of this, and it sort of just lives there and blocks it, and that can manifest into your thyroid, having thyroid issues, and things like that. So the chakras are an energy system within your body, and it pretty much carries chi or prana or whatever you want to call it, but it's the life force of our body. It is the energy centers, and there's 7 that are within our physical body. It's starting from the crown, which is the top of your head, and goes all the way down to the root chakra, which is right right between your legs, and it just carries the energy through our bodies. And so when something is blocked or out of balance or out of whack, it actually just keeps the flow. It really messes up the flow of energy in your body. I've seen people where they literally the energy is cut off at their throat, and like everything below their neck is just not well because the energy can't get there.
Mm.
So the energy centers of the chakras are really important, to be able to have true physical wellness.
Okay, so much good things, so many good things, so many places I want to go with that, and this is why, for people who are listening, the way that I always do my podcast, for the most part, is I'm like, "Hi, welcome to the podcast. We're gonna push record now," because this is exactly why. Because you just don't know where it's gonna go, you don't know what magic is gonna unfold, and it always goes somewhere amazing. So something that has been coming up a lot, like why did you hone in on the throat chakra and talking about that around women, right? This has been the thing that has been coming up so much over and over and over again. So I feel like this is where we need to go. But so first of all, like you were talking about specifically with women who have a
Mm,
hard time like speaking up, speaking our mind and
yes.
all of that, and how it can come from childhood, and it can come from what people have told us when we were younger and all of these
Hmm.
things. But it can go even deeper than that, right? Like
Hmm.
it's
Yes.
ancestral at
Oh,
times,
yes. Yep,
right?
absolutely.
And
Yes.
so
And
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
I was
please.
just going to say that yes, actually, and I didn't mention it earlier. We also live with, yeah, the voices of the past, right? If it's an ancestral belief, right? Our grandmother was she was like, nope, I'm like the sort of, and I'm the Stepford housewife, right? It's that kind of energy that's like, nope, I'm here to cook for your father, and dinner's on the table at 6, and I'm, this perfect image of what that 1950s like feminine like experience was supposed to be, and it's passed on to your mom and then down on to you, and so it just flows down to you, and it's it's really, there's a lot of energy that lives, especially with our ancestors, and that karmic sort of ancestor karmic, and that doesn't just have to do with the throat chakra. I mean, money,
Right.
like the money beliefs that we have stem ancestrally as well. People are like, oh, my family, we never make money.
Mhm.
Like we're always poor. We're all, whatever belief and crap that they have now long thought, because it's came from their grandparents, and it can also come from lifetimes, past
Mm.
lifetimes,
Mm.
and how you've experienced different lifetimes, and it sits, in your energetic body, and it's still something that you carry with you. So an energy healing also heals those old cords. It's like you don't need to carry that around with you in this lifetime. It's not relevant to this lifetime. So
Mm.
there's a lot of healing that can happen on ancestral beliefs, karma, and past lives.
I love it. And it's so interesting, I find, because I feel like so often we're just not sure where it comes from, right? And this
Mhm.
is sort of like this explanation in a way of like, it doesn't even have to be this lifetime. Like some people are like, well, my parents were great, or nothing really awful happened in my childhood. Although, I don't talk to that many people who have
You know
that.
what? You know what's interesting about that though is that so I grew up, I had a great childhood, right? I really did. However, one innocuous comment
Mm,
can trigger a whole like wealth of beliefs, right? Again, I grew up sort of in that you're supposed to be seen and not heard from a
yep.
child perspective, right? Or it can even be your mom's making dinner and you come over and you're like, look at this amazing crayon coloring that I just did. And she's like, I don't have time for that. I'm too busy. And in your little childhood mind, you think, oh, well, I guess my voice doesn't matter. I guess she doesn't want to see, like, it's that kind of simple, innocuous thing that we carry around. It's like, oh, well, my mom said that she was too busy for me. So I guess, but she's not totally busy for you the whole life. It just happened to be one experience, but you carry it like this little rock that you're just like, well, this is a belief that I believed when I was 5.
Exactly.
Okay, let that go. You don't need to carry that. You're an adult, right?
Right. And it's almost sort of like an upgrade in beliefs, right?
Yes.
Because it's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't, when you're young, you don't, you can't rationalize it away like you can when you're older.
Yeah.
When you're young, you're right. You just take it on as like, well, I guess what I'm saying has no value, and I'm not important. So I'm going to go over here in the corner and I'm going to cry. And my entire life is going to just unfold in this way based on this one belief. And
Yep.
we don't even realize that that's
No.
what has
No.
happened. And that happened to me.
Yeah.
I can't even pinpoint an exact comment, but
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about the throat chakra, this was something that over the last several years was a place that I had to heal and had to kind of
Yeah.
unravel all of that for myself, because
Mm-hmm.
like you, it was very much it was something I took on based on an experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't a comment that somebody made, but based on an experience in my childhood, I just like shut all of it down and decided I needed to be invisible and
Yep.
not unseen and unheard.
And this goes for especially like people that have a lot of siblings
Mm,
too. Like it's sort of that middle child. Like people say, like, oh, I have this middle child syndrome, right? I was like number 3 out of 5 or whatever, right? And it's sort of that there's so many things going on that unless you sort of shouted, you weren't heard in your family. So sometimes that comes up too. It's just like, well, I was like the little mousy one in my family. And so if I just didn't speak up because nobody, like everybody just talked over me and you allowed it, right? And that sits with our solar plexus chakra as well, as far as giving our power away and not having confidence. There's so much. And so I grew up, I'm the only girl on both sides of my family. So I have all boys, both brothers and cousins, and you name it. I was literally like the first girl in like 2 generations, right? So it was like this, a lot of, but and while my parents said, it's amazing that you're a girl and go do all the good, amazing things, I had aunts and uncles that were like, well, you're supposed to be in the kitchen. You're not supposed to be playing football outside. You need to like go peel some potatoes on Thanksgiving. I'm just like, no, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to peel potatoes. That's just because I'm a girl, but it also ended up making me like, well, I can't cry because I have to show up like this because otherwise I can't play with the boys, right? So there's a whole lot of baggage that stems from just how you grew up, the experience that you have to unravel and choose the story you're going to tell yourself moving forward, right? Because it's all about rewriting your story, right? Because you don't have to keep all of these old beliefs and crap that you, again, I always sort of reference a backpack filled with rocks. And the easier, like once you let go of the rocks and you put the backpack down, hey, guess what? Your life gets a lot easier.
so how do you put the backpack down? How do you take out a rock? We'll just do one rock.
We'll just do one rock. You know what? I think awareness is really key, right? And so obviously meditation, automatic. So I'm a big believer in automatic writing. I
Oh, I
tout this
love
in all
automatic.
of my lives. And for people who don't understand what automatic writing is, it's really about allowing your subconscious to come forward and to sort of tell you what you need to know. So it's turning off the ego frontal like cortex of your mind. And by doing that, it allows your higher self to sort of give you the messages you need. I use it all the time to tune into spirit. I use it to talk to people who have passed on. I use it in a wealth of sort of reasons. I pretty much write letters and I'm like, okay, tell me what you need me to know
Mm,
today. But because I have a very busy mind, sometimes sitting down and in meditation doesn't necessarily give me all the information, because all of a sudden my brain's like, well, what about this to-do list and this? So automatic writing keeps my hand busy, which keeps my that ego mind busy because it's writing, and
mm,
it allows all the information to sort of flow through me. So the key to letting go of something is, one, it's awareness. It's figuring out, oh, I have a problem, right? It's okay. Why do I believe this? Why am I afraid? Why am I afraid of showing up? Why am I afraid of being vulnerable? And sitting with it, right? And it's dirty work.
mm.
Nobody really wants to dig into the mud and figure out what's going on. So it's not necessarily the most fun, right? So it's sometimes called shadow work. It's
Right.
figuring out all those things.
That's what I was
Um,
gonna. I'm glad you said shadow work, because somebody just asked me the other day, what is shadow work? So,
mhm,
and it's this, right? It's
yes.
sitting with the yucky, uncomfortable. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and figuring out why, right?
Mm,
And so for me, I'm sort of I can help you get there faster because spirit's telling me where it comes from. But you can also do this yourself, again, by meditating and sitting with it and figuring out, okay, why am I not able to keep a good man or a relationship or whatever it is that you have this belief on, right? And it's going, okay, well, what am I attracting? What energy am I putting out there? What do I believe about myself?
mm,
And so again, journaling is so powerful. Being able to put things on paper and to read them back and figure out and going, oh, well, that's not true. That's
yeah.
not real. Why am I believing that? And then you have to sit with it and go, okay, well, what's the story I really want to tell myself? What am I replacing this old, outdated story with? How can I rewrite this so that I can clear it, let it go, and say, no, that's not how I'm going to show up moving forward.
Mm. I think that's so key, because I do feel like so many people will identify the story and they'll sit and dig for so long of like, what's wrong? What's the story? What's wrong? And it's like, I think you're right. Having the awareness is very, very important. But what you're saying about the whole point is to rewrite it, is
Yes.
to rewrite it so that we can move forward in a really powerful way. So what would you say about that? Like what are some tips you could give?
uh,
On how to,
so one, two, I think the biggest thing is forgiveness as well is really important, right? Because we all hold a lot of shame and frustration and anger, and this sits with us, right? And so even when you sit and go, okay, I now understand that it was my grandfather who told me, okay, I can't do this, or I'm just a girl, I don't know what I'm talking about, and this is sort of this belief that I've been carrying around with me, right? And so it's forgiving, one, because your grandfather like grew, again, there's ancestral stuff, right? It just trickles down. And so it's sort of forgiving them for not knowing what they know, right? It's sort of, I forgive you for they know not what they do,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's true, right? Because there's no handbook for parenting, right? And again, there's multiple generations here. And this generation, women are way more empowered than they were in the past, right? And so it's just a different energy.
Mm,
And so you have to sort of forgive the people that have hurt you, because forgiveness is not for other people. Forgiveness is you saying, I no longer allow your energy to affect me in my current state, right? It's letting that go. It's dropping that cord. It's saying, I'm done. I've forgiven you. And again, you're not forgiving them for their actions necessarily, right? It's not accepting how they've treated you or what they've said to you. It's saying your energy no longer is affecting me now. I'm done. But forgiveness of yourself is
oh yeah.
also really important, because if you don't forgive yourself, right, for allowing it to happen, right, if you don't forgive those feelings, right, again, I've been divorced. And so it's forgiving myself for allowing myself to be treated a certain way, or to allow like all these different experiences that, again, I allow, but I also learned from it. I also gained two beautiful, amazing children from it. So there's like, I have to also look at it from a lesson, a journey, a
Mm,
growth experience, right? Because
yes.
guess what? Moving forward, I now say, okay, I have this experience. Great. I've learned from it. How can I use that in my future to make it even better?
Mm, yes.
Did that
I
answer your
love that.
question?
Yes, yes. And so much more. Self-forgiveness. I think it's so easy to forget that one. That's maybe the most important one.
Absolutely. Yes.
Let yourself off the hook for feeling the shame of what happened and or
Yep.
whatever it is. That was where I found a lot of healing.
Hmm.
I was in several abusive relationships. I've talked about this on the podcast before. And again, stemming from old things and this like low self-esteem and
Yeah.
all of that. And so it was like, on one hand, you're angry at the person for treating you badly. And
Hmm.
then you kind of realize, oh, at some point when you're doing the work, you realize, oh, like I allowed that to happen. And
Hmm.
I can forgive myself
Yes.
for being in this situation.
Hmm.
And everybody was doing the best they could with the tools that they had at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And even abusive again, like forgiving them is not accepting. It's not saying it
Exactly.
was okay. I'm
No.
not. And
You're not
so
condoning it saying like,
no,
oh,
absolutely.
being in
Yeah,
an
please.
abusive relationship is a great thing. It's not about that. Correct.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. But we carry so much shame, like as women, like, and it lives in our sacral chakra. Like there's so much feminine wounds.
Oh yeah.
Society puts it on us, and like our parents and our grandparents and coaches and teachers and you name it. As being, again, female is a challenging thing growing up sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting better, but again, in the generation I grew up in, it just sort of was still kind of like, well, you're supposed to be a teacher, or you're supposed, you're not supposed to be too big, you're not supposed to be
Mm,
too loud, you're
yep.
considered a bitch, or you're considered, oh, you're kind of emotional, or whatever it is, like that. We go into the corporate world and we're like, okay, well, I can't show emotion, and I need to like dress like I'm like uptight, and it's like, no, you can do whatever you want, like
Exactly.
you just have to sort of let some of the societal crap go, and no, this is how I'm showing
Exactly.
up.
I actually, the last podcast guest that I had on, Coach Colleen, she talked about leadership, and she came from a corporate environment as well. And she was saying that while it is kind of the more masculine traits that have been really the thing that have kind of been the most forward facing things, it really is the more feminine traits coming in that are going to be the bigger thing going forward. And I
Yeah.
see that in business as well,
Hmm.
for men and women. It's not about man woman,
Right.
it's more about what that trait represents. And
Hmm.
like you were saying, oh, you're too emotional, and now it's like, I've been emotional my whole life, and now I'm like, being emotional is like a superpower. I'm like, it's a guide. It's showing me things, and
Hmm.
it's allowing me to be more intuitive and really tap into what's going on with other people. Like it
Hmm.
truly, it was something for a long time as a child. I was like you're saying, especially as a girl, you should just like dry it up, quit crying,
Hmm.
like don't be so
Yeah.
emotional about all the things.
And I was not emotional.
You were the opposite.
I
Uh-huh.
was the opposite, and so I just kind of went no. And it wasn't even until I met my ex-husband now, but like that, I didn't cry at movies. I just was like, nope, this is like bananas. I am stone cold. But it also limited me from showing vulnerability,
Yep.
because I was just like, no, I have to show up this way. This is who I am, and it blocked a lot of I ended up attracting a lot of relationships that weren't necessarily the healthiest, because I wasn't willing to sort of show up truly as
Mhm.
myself, because I was like, no, this is how I'm showing up. Right. I had this wall up. It's like, and people were like, hey, you need to like let that shit go. You need to
Totally.
bring it down a notch. And so it really wasn't until, my ex-husband and I met, and he was like, it's okay to cry, that, right? And all of a sudden I just became like this waterworks, and now I cry at Hallmark commercials at Christmas, and all the like Olympic like mom stuff, and part
Oh,
of just being a
stop,
mom too,
right?
right? And it's like, oh, I was there for my kid. Yeah. Anyways, long
Totally.
story short is that now he really helped me break down that wall. So again, growth. So again, even though I'm not still together with him, he taught me a lot of things that were good, right? So it's,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been on both sides of it. So I was like super emotional as a kid. Do you know anything about Enneagram?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm a 4 on Enneagram. I'm a 4 with a wing 5. So it's a weird, anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But the point is with 4s, one of their things is that they're really emotional. And so about 5 years ago, I've also talked about this on the podcast. So people who've been listening are going to be like, really, she's telling this story again? But I'm going somewhere with it. So stick with me. But 5 years ago or so, my husband was let go from his job and
Mm-hmm.
I became the breadwinner. And I, at the time, was not the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
We had insurance through him. Everything was through him and my money was like play money.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that point forward, I had to kind of create this container and grow my business really quickly. And like basically in my head at the time, I was like, I have to save everyone. I have to save myself and the world and my family and just put like
A lot of weight.
all the weight and shut down the emotion.
Yeah.
Shut it down because I had to go into like total masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Or I didn't have to, I chose to. It
Right.
was maybe not the right choice, but it was fine because it led me to where I am now. All of it, like you're saying, is all lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been on both sides. So I've been to where I'm like, I can't cry. I have no time for emotion. I have shit to do and things to build and get out of my way. And like,
Yes.
and that can only take you so far too. It's like, there
Mm-hmm.
has to be this
Balance, the yin and yang, right? There's a reason why and same with the chakras. So sort of hopping back to the chakras is,
yeah.
it's not just blocks. If you haven't blown open, that's not any better, right? I mean, it's the people that are judgmental and that will like sort of talk over it. It's that like where it's blown open, that's not any better than being blocked. It's still still can create lots of problems for you.
Right. It's not that balanced, nice,
Yeah.
like, yeah. That's a really good point too, because you're right there. And we might have different ones one might be really open and another might be really closed. And there's
Yes.
all the different, and I feel like I've had like all things.
We all do. I
Right?
mean, and every day we wake up and it's a different experience, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just about, this is why meditation is really important, right? And every morning I do a clearing. I do a meditation, and every morning I clear my chakras going, okay, I'm letting go of all the blocks and all the crap that I'm carrying around, and I'm starting my day fresh and clean, right? And because it's just important, because I might have gone to bed upset about something, right? That happened in my day. I'm like, dang it, I gotta let that go. Like it's a new day. How
Yeah.
can I make it better?
So I have heard this phrase said before, and I think you'll appreciate it because of your backpack analogy.
Yes.
But it's really about emptying the backpack every night, every day,
Yep.
and starting fresh. So like if at night, if you empty the backpack,
Mm-hmm.
like you're
Yep.
saying,
Mm-hmm.
and you just let the whole day go,
Yes.
and then we get to start over the next day. And what happens, I think, for so many people, and you can give your perspective on this as well, but we basically just create the same story every day because we're telling the same thing every day and we're living
Yep.
the same experience every day. And so we feel like it's this kind of like wall.
It's habit.
Oh my gosh, please go ahead, speak on that. You just said
It's a
one of my
habit.
favorite
I mean,
words.
beliefs, our subconscious lives and does things because it's a habit, right? In order to change the things that we do, we have to change the habit, the pattern of behavior, the pattern of thought, the pattern of action, and so it's sort of when you're driving to work and you're lost in thought and you get there and you're like, holy crap, how did I get here? That's your subconscious going, I know how to get to work. You drive there, you don't even have to think about it. And it's a habit. And so you have to break the actual habit to allow your subconscious to create new energetic patterns, to create a new thought pattern or a new belief, things like that. So that's why I said it's really important to rewrite the story, right? So you say, okay, here's the story I'm telling myself, that I can't show up vulnerable because it might make me look weak, right? How do I rewrite that? Showing up and being my exact authentic self is allowing me to help others and blah, 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 whatever you want to say. But you have to rewrite it. And then you have to think about it. Like again, what is it? I think it's 21 days to create a new habit. So keep that little mantra in front of you every day. Read it, right? Put it, write it down in your journal or in your gratitude, whatever it is that you do every day, and you have to like leave it someplace and go, this is how I'm showing up every day, and show up that way. So
And
when
then
if you're like, I'm going to be this strong, powerful, amazing woman, guess what? Show up that way. Show up, get in the shower, put some makeup on. If that's how you want to show up, right? I'm not saying every woman has to do that. I'm just saying whatever it is that makes you feel powerful and strong, if that's how you want to show up, you no longer be this mousy, like little like wallflower, then show up that way. Put on a bright colored shirt, put on like, whatever it is that makes you happy, but you have to show up that way every day in order for it to be ingrained in your thought pattern and how you're showing up every day and energetically putting it out to the universe, right? Because you're all about manifesting, right? And it's magic, right? And putting that energy out into the universe. And if you're not doing it, right, you're just like, yeah, here, you know what? I'm a magical manifester, but I'm going to sit here and not do anything. Guess what? The universe is like, well, she's not really willing to put in any effort. So, okay, we'll give her what she wants, which is not a whole lot. So again, show up, create the new pattern, create the new thought process. It's all,
So I feel like when I had my biggest breakthrough a few years ago was when I realized that habits could be thought patterns. I didn't know that. Like every habit book you read, I feel like I've read them all. Now I'm obsessed with habit. But I used to be bored to tears by that word. Like it was so uninspiring to me, like habit, I don't know, like routine. I'm a Sagittarius, like freedom is my highest value. I'm like routine, habit, get out of my way. Boring. Talk about sucking all the like air out of life. Like that's no fun. And then I realized, oh, my anxiety is because of the thoughts that I am habitually thinking. Oh, like my overwhelm is because I'm always in a habit of being overwhelmed and doing it this way. And not that physical things don't have to change, but it all starts with what we're saying first. Like you're saying, you have to show up and be that first. And that comes from how you're speaking to yourself, how you're thinking, how you're, and that was the biggest breakthrough I had. So when you said the word habit, I was like, ding, 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 ding. Like, yes, I feel like if people could really sink into just going back to what you were talking about, the awareness, doing a little bit of that shadow work, sitting with that uncomfortable ugliness for just a minute, and then rewriting that story.
Yes.
And then what you said, have it in front of you and begin to show up. Like you basically just described my entire magic method.
Well, there you go.
Like, yeah, basically described all of it, because it's really the truth of it is then it just becomes about going and doing the things and continuing to tune into
and do the work
where you're being led and just do it and just keep
baby steps.
Yes. And so it goes back to, how are you healing, right? That energy healing that it is that you do. And that's why that is so vitally important. And you even said something earlier that I just want to hit on before I let you go. But the fact that what you do could help people do it faster. So will you just talk just a little bit about that? And then I know you're busy. I'll let you go, but
sure. And so during the sessions that I again, spirit is telling me what's going on with you, right? They give me dates. They give me not necessarily like September 14th, 1982. It's not like that. It's more like around the age of 5, this happened to you and this is what's going on. And Archangel Michael's going to come in and clear that cord for you. And Archangel Raphael's going to provide healing or whatever it is, right? So spirit is telling me what's going on from an energetic perspective. If it's an ancestral belief, if it's karma, if it's a past life. I've cleared someone who had pain in their back and they didn't know why. And it was like a past life. Someone stabbed them literally in the back in a past life. And we're like, that doesn't need to be in this lifetime. So we cleared it. And they were just like, that's amazing. Right? So it can be anything, right? But I also, money, right, is a big one, right? So people who have their root,
my favorite topic.
I know. And so root chakras that are blocked, right, because of these old beliefs that, well, my parents said that, that I have to work harder. I'm not going to amount to anything. So
Mhm.
again, there's that sort of parent talk where they're just like, well, you're not going to amount to anything. And you're just like, okay, well, I guess I won't. Okay. So spirit helps me clear that out and to help you create the new stories, right? So they're helping me give you the tools, the awareness, they're clearing it from an energetic perspective, but there's still homework around it because again, our thoughts and beliefs are habits. And
Mhm.
so in order for you to truly change, you have to change your thoughts and beliefs to go along with the energetic clearing. Because otherwise, guess what? Cords can grow back. Cords
Got
can
it.
cords can grow
Okay.
back to the situation. If you keep believing it, you're just going to come back and see me in a month and be like, what happened? You didn't do anything. And I'll be like, well,
Mm.
did you do any work that we talked about? So it's a process, right? And it's here's the other thing, we're all onions, right? So
Mhm.
spirit's going to tell you what you need to get let go of right now. That doesn't mean you're done, right? I'm not done. I still work. I have lots of work to do, right? And so
Lots of
it's
work, raising my
lots
hand.
of work, right? And so it's just our lifetime. We're here to learn and to grow. And so it's all about revealing what the next layer is
Mm.
and raising your vibration, right? Raising your frequency and what you're putting out to the world. And so you just, every time you let go of another bag, you're raising yourself up and you shine your bright lighter. Right. So it's just, again, you have to just peel all the layers back. So shadow work is never a one and done, just so you know.
No.
No, it's
No.
a you uncover one and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I didn't know that was under there.
Totally. I mean, I have totally said the words before, but why is this coming up? I already dealt with this. And then you're like, oh, it's another layer. Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And it's like a spiral staircase too, right? And
Yeah.
so it's sort of like you deal with one aspect of it and then it comes back
Mhm.
around and you're like, oh, apparently I'm not done yet. I still have something else to learn. And then it comes back around. You're just like, really? But again, eventually you'll get to the top. But there's usually just multiple layers to it that you have to just sort of let go. And then, oh, okay, I have to let that go now. And
Yeah.
it's a process.
It's so good. It's so good and so true. And you have really given us a lot in just even this like short amount of time. I feel like I'm just like, okay, we talked about automatic writing, we talked about shadow work, we talked about
I'm a,
this is
I'm
a
an ADD Gemini, so and a manifesting generator. So, I talk about all the things.
generator. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm gonna have you back on because I feel like we still have a lot more to talk about. We're gonna have part two,
Part
okay?
two. Yeah.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. So for
Thank
people
you
who
for having me.
been listening and they're like,
Yes.
okay, this is amazing. I want to do it faster.
Yep.
How do they contact you? What is the best
Sh-
way for people to get?
Yes, they can so they can go out to my website, Radiant Living HLC, which is my website. Also, same for Instagram and for Facebook. So Radiant Living HLC is the little number, the name, the number that you need to contact. But as well as in November, I'm doing a little challenge, a
Oh,
5-day
tell
Heal
us about
Yourself
that.
challenge. So it's
I'll
going to
make
be
sure I put the links for everything.
yeah, so I will send you those links. But the second week in November, we're going to be doing a Heal Yourself challenge. So I
Mm,
don't know if this will be out by then, but
it will.
anyhow, yeah.
I'll make
So
sure it is.
okay, and so the Heal Yourself challenge is basically 5 days of like how you can get rid of all your bags, right? Put down those rocks. So it's talking about intuition and chakras and inner child work and divine feminine wounds and money. So those are sort of the 5 days. That's kind of an intro to a 10-week course that I'm going to be doing in January. So
I
yeah,
love
it's very exciting. But if you want to just book a session with me too, that's good too. So Radiant Living HLC.
it. Okay, awesome. And yeah, so where do you hang out the most on social? Are
I'm
you
on Facebook the most. I'm
okay?
trying to do a little more on Instagram, but again, I'm sort of old school.
And that's okay. That's the thing is like there's people everywhere. Like
Yes,
there's people everywhere.
exactly.
You just go where
Yeah,
you
and so even though I have a Twitter, I really don't use it because
whoops,
it's a
who
lot of work and I
has
just don't have
Twitter?
enough time for it. So yeah, so yeah, Facebook and Instagram are kind of the two that I live on at the moment. So yeah, that's where they can find me the most.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you for having
showing up
me.
and being here and giving so generously of your
Of course.
time and wisdom. It was
That is
so
that's what I'm here for. I'm a healer and a helper. That's my soul's reason for being here this lifetime. So
well. You are shining brightly, and
thank you.
just keep doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well. Thank you.